All right, who's Billahi Shaitan regime? And of men are some who say, we believe in God in the last day, but they are not believers. They would deceive God and those who heed warning, but they only deceive themselves and perceive not. In their hearts is a disease, so God has increased their disease, and for them is a painful punishment because they have lied. All right, peace. That was verses 8 through 10 of the second chapter of the Quran. In this series, we're looking at the three types of people in existence according to Allah. In the last video, we saw the characteristics of the second type of people, the characteristics of those that get Allah's wrath. They're the ones that ignore the warning of his wrath. And it makes sense. I mean, if there's a danger around and you ignore the warning signs of the danger, then you're bound to run into that danger, right? It is interesting, though, that Allah didn't spend a lot of time describing this type of people in comparison to the other types of people. In contrast, though, Allah spends a significant amount of time on the last type of people, those who are astray. Allah starts off by saying, and of men are some who say, we believe in God and the last day, but they are not believers. So the very first attribute given to this type of people is that they say that they believe in Allah and the last day. So this doesn't sound like these are the people that get Allah's punishment, like the second type of people we were looking at. This sounds more like the first group, the successful. But Allah immediately corrects that thought. And he lets us know that this type of people, they aren't believers. This is tricky. And it's scary because we want to be the first type of people. We want to be the successful. And certainly we would all say we believe in Allah on the last day. Like, that's something you would say. Like, yeah, I believe in Allah. Yeah, I believe in the last day. So what's the difference between the successful and this type of people? If we go back to what Allah told us, were the characteristics of the successful, we see that belief in Allah and the last day aren't qualities that are listed for the successful. Instead, Allah says that they're fearful. They're certain of the hereafter. So this is why this is tricky. These people claim something that sounds like the successful, but they aren't. Okay, so Allah continues saying, they would deceive God and those who heed warning, but they only deceive themselves, and they perceive not. See, it is a trick. These people are trying to trick Allah. So they're definitely not believers. I mean, if they think they could trick Allah, you can't be an actual believer. And they think they're tricking the actual believers, which is a little scarier because believers are just people. And unlike Allah, we can be tricked. We can be fooled. And maybe if a believer gets tricked by this type of person, the believer is going to start to emulate the fake believer, start to be like the fake believer. So by describing the characteristics of this type of person, Allah has given us the guidance on how to avoid being fooled, or how to avoid being this type of person. But how? We know that this group isn't successful, and their goal is to trick Allah and the believers. But how can we identify this type of person, like out in the world, like where we are? Like, what are their characteristics? Well, the first characteristic that Allah gives us about who these people are is they've tricked themselves into thinking that they're believers. He ended the last ayah saying that they're only able to trick themselves, but they don't get that they're that they're tricking themselves. They don't get that they're not believers. They're absolutely convinced that they're on the right path, and they don't understand that what they're doing is wrong. But if you are an actual believer, I'm sure you would think that you are a believer too, right? So how do we know if we're actually doing right or if we're just fooling ourselves? Allah continues in the next ayah saying, in their hearts is disease, so God has increased their disease. And for them is a painful punishment because they have lied. Okay. So in the last video, we saw the ones who were indifferent to warning. Allah described them as having coverings over their hearts. And we asked, what does that mean? Like what does it mean to have a covering over your heart? Like eyes being covered, that's straightforward. Your eyes are covered, you can't see. Your ears being covered, that's obvious. You can't hear, you know. But what is the function of the heart? And what does it mean that it can be covered? Or now, as what Allah is saying, what does it mean that it can have a disease? It feels like Allah gave us a thought equation here. We have known variables and we got to solve for an unknown X. We know that this third type of people, they aren't good. And they have a disease in their hearts. And the indifferent, they're bad and their hearts are covered. But what about the successful? Allah didn't tell us about their hearts. We know that they're good, that they're on the good side of things. I think that we can assume that their hearts aren't like the hearts of those who are indifferent or the hearts of those who are astray. So that must mean that their hearts are uncovered and healthy. Okay. We're getting somewhere, but we still don't know what the function of the heart is. We just know that the believer's heart would be uncovered, whatever that means, and it would be healthy, without disease. What we know about the heart is it pumps blood. It pumps your blood through your body. But clearly Allah isn't talking about the physical function of the heart. Just like when he says he covers the eyes and the ears, he obviously isn't saying that these people are physically deaf or physically blind. So again, what's the role of the heart? We know that a person that receives the guidance has a healthy heart. So you receive the guidance, you got a healthy heart. You're the good people. And the people who get the punishment, they have a covered heart. And this third type of people wants to look like they got the guidance, but they don't have it. But they think they do. Is that the disease? And then Allah says he increases their disease. Like, what does that mean? We need to know what the heart does to understand, like, its malfunction, a disease that it would have. And we would need to understand what this malfunction is to understand what it means to be increased in this malfunction. Okay, so let's go back to what we know about hearts. A person who receives the guidance has a healthy heart. And a person who gets the punishment has a covered heart. Now, the person who has the covered heart, it sounds like they can't even receive, they're not even getting the guidance. I think that's a clue. And this third type of person, those astray, they look like they got the guidance, but they don't have it. But they think that they have it. If it seems like the heart plays a role in receiving guidance. Like, We know the good people, they actually receive the guidance, and their hearts aren't covered. Okay. We know the those who are indifferent, those who are going to get or doomed to the wrath, their hearts are covered, and Allah says it doesn't matter whether you mourn them or not. So they're not even getting the guidance. And then you have this last group that actually does get the guidance, or it seems like they get the guidance. They're not oblivious to guidance. So it seems like the heart does something with guidance. Like the role of the heart is to be able to receive the guidance, like it's useful to the heart. It doesn't just receive the guidance and bam, it has the guidance, but the heart does something useful with the guidance. In the same way that like sight isn't just good for seeing, because it helps you see stuff that you can do stuff with. So if that's the case, what's the role of the heart once it's received its guidance? Like, what does it do with the guidance? And if we think about it, I guess we should ask, what's the point of guidance? Like, what does guidance do? The purpose of guidance is to know what to do. It's to be guided, Or even better, like a better way of saying it is guidance tells us the right moves to make to get to an outcome or to get to a certain destination. Like GPS tells you right turns and left turns and which turn to make to get where you're going. Guidance tells you the right decisions to make in life. Or guidance tells you the right decisions to make in general. But if that's what guidance does in general, is Allah telling us that the heart is our decision-making tool? Like, our heart is what we use to make decisions? Let's see if that fits with what Allah gave us. So if we think back, the successful have an uncovered heart. So they receive the guidance. And because their heart is healthy and they have the guidance, they make the right decisions in life, thus becoming successful. The indifferent, those who are indifferent to warning, their hearts are covered. So they can't receive guidance. And with no guidance, you're doomed to make the wrong decisions. You want to go to a place and you don't have a map, you don't know how to get there, you're not going to get there. And this last group, their hearts aren't covered. So it seems like they could receive the guidance. But Allah says they're not believers. So obviously, if they had the guidance, they aren't using it right. They aren't making the right decisions with it. It seems like with the guidance, they still make the wrong decisions. Maybe that's the disease in their hearts. Like, their hearts, if that's the malfunction, the heart says do this, they do that. The GPS says turn right, they turn left. So when Allah says that He increases their disease, it sounds like He's increasing them in doing the wrong thing and making the wrong choices. And if they're doing the wrong thing, then they're going to have the same outcome as those who are indifferent to warning. They're going to get the punishment. This seems to fit for the function of the heart. Allah even ends the ayah by confirming that this group is going to get the punishment as well. So it seems to fit. And he tells us that they get the punishment because they lied. Now the new question is, what did they lie about? I mean, the only lie so far that Allah has told us about them lying about is being believers. And along that line of questioning, what is the end destination that the believers want? Like, where are the believers trying to be guided to? I mean, we know that guidance gets you somewhere or to some outcome. This group, those that are astray, and the second group, those that are indifferent to warning, their end outcome is the punishment. But what does that mean to have your end outcome be the punishment? Like, what is that? I guess we got a lot of questions there. And we're going to have to keep these questions in mind and see how Allah answers them. But for now, Allah is still giving us more descriptions of this third type of people. And so far, we found out that this group would appear to be believers, but they're not really believers. And they're trying to trick Allah and the believers into thinking that they're believers. But they've only tricked themselves into thinking that they're believers. And they're constantly doing the wrong thing. They're not following the guidance. They're not doing what believers do. So it makes sense that Allah makes sure that they keep doing the wrong thing. Also, these people are destined for the punishment, just like the indifferent, and they're liars. That last point, them being liars, is important. Like, don't feel bad for these people. Like, Allah says that they're liars. That implies they know the truth. They have the truth. They just choose to do other than that. They choose to lie instead of the truth. In the next video, we'll continue with more details about this type of people, inshallah. If this is making sense, go read the Quran. It's a straight path, Allah to you. He didn't send you to me to tell you what he says. Peace.